These are the waters of Lake Van, located in eastern Turkey, a region known to history as Eastern Anatolia. For 26 years, this area suffered the rampaging violence of a civil war and a world war that claimed the lives of nearly 2 million people. Starting in the 11th century, Turkish tribes from the plains of Central Asia rode westward, defeating the Persians and Byzantines along the way, conquering lands from the Arabian deserts to the Danube River in Europe. These tribes became known as the Ottomans, and their great empire would survive for more than 600 years. The Ottoman Empire spanned from Persia and Arabia to North Africa and southern Europe, ruled by sultans in the great city of Istanbul, a strategic stronghold where Europe met the Near East. Although most of its subjects were Muslim, the Ottoman government guaranteed complete religious freedom for its Christian and Jewish minorities. These communities, known as millets, were governed to a large extent by their own religious leaders. For centuries, Christians and Jews lived side by side with their Muslim neighbors. Among the empire's many mosques, churches and synagogues also stood in the cities and towns. In the 1800s, European powers began to assert more influence upon Istanbul and to covet Ottoman lands. Under pressure from these great powers, the sultans issued a series of decrees that granted many economic and political concessions. European nations could even issue certificates of protection to Ottoman subjects, making them immune to Ottoman law. In the 19th century, a great wave of nationalism swept across Europe and began to undermine the Ottoman Empire. A series of wars for national independence broke out in southeastern Europe, supported by the great powers. First, Greece broke away, then Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Montenegro. By the start of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire had lost most of its lands in Europe and North Africa. Great Britain, France, and Russia, driven by their imperialist greed, drove a wedge between the Ottoman Empire's Muslim rulers and their Christian minorities. Western attention soon focused on the Armenians, a Christian people, as a useful ally. In ancient times, Armenians once ruled their own kingdom in Asia Minor. Over the next 2,000 years, they spread out across Anatolia and the Caucasus, a distinct minority that contributed much to Ottoman culture and society.
It's nonsense to think of the Armenians as an oppressed minority in the Ottoman Empire. They got on very, very well indeed. They had ambassadors, foreign ministers, they ran the banks. The Armenians were known as the most loyal of the Christian communities, the millets, the famous phrase. And they were regarded with a certain amount of hatred even by the Greeks, who thought that they were far too close to the Ottomans.
The empire's greatest enemy was Russia, which fought 3 wars against the Ottomans in the 1800s, capturing land and killing or driving out the Muslim population. On July 13, 1878, the Treaty of Berlin brought peace between Russia and the Ottomans. It also addressed for the first time Europe's concern for the Christian Armenians. From that point on, Russia, France, and Great Britain made the Armenian issue their special concern. The Ottomans' belief in religious freedom began to work against them as hundreds of missionaries from Europe and the United States set up schools and hospitals across the empire. They focused their attention on the Armenians.
The missionaries brought with them some wonderful ideas about knowledge, about hygiene, about social organization, but they also contributed to the splintering of the empire. They contributed to a loss of loyalty by the religious groups toward the Central Ottoman government.
Many Armenians left the empire and went to schools in Europe and Russia. They caught the fire of socialist revolution and its philosophy that the ends justified the means. In 1887, Armenian expatriates formed the Hinchak Party in Geneva, Switzerland. 3 years later, the Tashnaq Party was born. Both parties believed that Armenians should fight for their homeland through violent revolution against the Ottoman government.
Beginning in the 1890s, we see the emergence of Armenian terrorist groups, such as Hinchak and Tashnaq. In today's terminology, just like Al-Qaeda is called a terrorist organization, Armenians had formed a terror organization as well, which committed assassinations and attacks on various places.
Hinchak and Tashnaq party leaders proclaimed they would launch a campaign of terror against the Turkish and Kurdish people in eastern Anatolia. In Istanbul, British Ambassador Philip Curry reported, "The aim of the Armenian revolutionaries is to stir disturbances, to get the Ottomans to react to violence, and thus get the foreign powers to intervene." Fueled by Marxism and nationalism, the Armenian rebels declared war on the Ottoman Empire. In December 1893, Dr. Cyrus Hamlin, a Boston educator, reported that an Armenian revolutionary told him the following: "We will kill Turks and Kurds, set fire to villages. Enraged Muslims will rise, fall upon defenseless Armenians, and slaughter them. We are desperate. We shall do it."
They had no choice. And consequently, they had better attack the Muslims because the Muslims were attacking them. And this conflict became inevitable. There were no more neutral parties. There were only those who were on the Ottoman side and those who were on the Armenian and the Russian side.
Starting in 1894, Armenian revolts broke out in several cities across eastern Anatolia, including Trabzon, Sivas, Erzurum, Bitlis, and Van.
The incident was always created by the Armenians. And these were bloody incidents. They would go and massacre a group of Muslims, and upon this provocation, the government, or even perhaps the local population, would go and repress them and massacre a group of Armenians in return. The important thing for Europe, of course, was that the Armenians were being massacred. A massacre of Muslims was not very important in their eyes. They had this attitude.
Ottoman authorities did retaliate, attacking and killing many Armenians. While the Western press portrayed the Turks as ruthless killers, little was said about the Armenian revolutionaries and the helpless Muslims they slaughtered.
They wanted to get the independence of the Armenian people by using force. That was wrong, because after living side by side for centuries, Turks were deeply hurt because of these terrorist activities.
These Marxist rebels forced many peaceful Armenians